Millions of tons of cargo cross the world's oceans every single day. Electronics, grain, manufactured goods. But if you strip away all those containers and look purely at the raw energy powering the global economy, the map gets incredibly simple. It all comes down to oil. Roughly 20% of all the oil traded on Earth does not flow freely across open waters. Instead, it is forced to squeeze through a single, highly congested bottleneck. This is the Strait of Hormuz. It acts as the sole aquatic valve connecting the oil-rich Persian Gulf to the Gulf of Oman, and eventually out into the open Indian Ocean. The modern global economy demands continuous growth and energy, yet it balances entirely on this one geographic vulnerability. To see why this waterway is so vulnerable, look at its physical dimensions. At its narrowest point, the distance from coast to coast is a mere 39 kilometers, but that entire width isn't actually deep enough for modern vessels. The safe, navigable water is restricted to just 2 lanes, one inbound, one outbound, each only 3 kilometers wide. And the ships forced to thread this tiny needle aren't nimble. They are massive, cumbersome structures of steel like the front commander, carrying millions of barrels of crude oil with immense physical momentum. Forcing thousands of these massive ships through a pair of 3-kilometer lanes year after year earns this passage a very specific title, the world's most important oil choke point. Behind that narrow gap sits the Persian Gulf. Trapped inside are some of the heaviest producers on the planet: Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. These nations operate massive, sprawling terrestrial refineries and storage facilities. Millions of barrels are pumped and processed daily, and virtually all of that localized output relies on exactly one aquatic exit route. Once clear of the strait, that crude flows out of the Gulf of Oman, across the Arabian Sea, and straight into the Indian Ocean, with a massive percentage landing directly on the shores of India. For a rapidly industrializing nation like India, basic energy security and domestic economic stability are completely tethered to the daily, uninterrupted operation of those tiny shipping lanes. But geography dictates politics. The northern coast overlooking these lanes is sovereign Iranian territory, while the southern coast is controlled by Oman. The terrain here is completely unforgiving. Steep, rocky mountain ranges drop straight down into the water, providing whichever nation controls the land with elevated natural vantage points looking directly down at the passing ships. Knowing the risks of this bottleneck, India has actively sought workarounds. They've poured heavy investment into Chabahar Port, a strategic coastal facility in southeastern Iran. Chabahar sits entirely outside the strait, offering a direct trade route into Central Asia that bypasses the choke point altogether. It proves a very basic law of the region. If you possess the shores flanking the Strait of Hormuz, you hold direct leverage over the flow of global energy. Because of the immense economic value passing through, this corridor is highly militarized. Slow, vulnerable civilian tankers are constantly shadowed by high-speed military patrols. The United States maintains an active, heavy presence here, deploying immense aircraft carriers and naval strike groups to project power and physically ensure the oil keeps moving. They are joined by the United Kingdom and other Western allies, contributing heavily armed frigates and destroyers to police the narrow lanes. Meanwhile, Iran deploys an entirely different strategy. They rely on asymmetric warfare, using swarms of highly maneuverable fast boats equipped with mounted machine guns to monitor, police, and frequently harass shipping traffic in their northern waters. Packing the navies of the US, UK, and Iran into a highly contested 39-kilometer space makes a strategic miscalculation a statistical certainty. And that tension regularly boils over into direct sabotage. We've seen brazen, physical attacks on civilian oil tankers like the Front Altair, proving the immediate reality of the threat. This leads to the ultimate piece of leverage in Middle Eastern politics. In times of severe tension, Iran frequently threatens to shut down the Strait of Hormuz completely. Because the required safe shipping lanes are only 3 kilometers wide, the threat of a physical closure is credible. Deploying naval mines or deliberately sinking a few massive cargo ships in the channel is a realistic military option. The cascade effect of a closure would be instantaneous. Global oil supplies would choke within hours, triggering catastrophic price spikes, forcing immediate rationing and crippling import-dependent economies. The math is unavoidable. Until humanity transitions away from its reliance on this specific flow of oil, global economic stability will remain permanently held hostage by the 39-kilometer Strait of Hormuz.